من لا نبي بعده ولا أمة بعد أمته ولا كتاب بعد كتابه ولا شريعة بعد شريعته ولا صحابة بعد صحابته أما بعد. Inshallah, today we'll be discussing the lifetimes in the first section of the Mathnui of Mawlana Jalaluddin Rumi Qaddas Allah Sirrahu Al-Aziz. It's incredibly important, as I've sort of been trying to emphasize, for us as Muslims, when we read our past, we see that certain figures stand out really more than others. And I think that Mawlana Rumi is sort of in that sort of singular vein. When Allama Iqbal, the great poet, was invited by the king of Afghanistan in the 1930s to set up what should have been the first Islamic and Western university, he wrote this ghazal as he was traveling between Peshawar, Kabul, and then Ghazna, where he said, "Az deir mugha ayam be gardish sahba mast, dar manzil la budam az bada'i illa mast." That I come from the land of the Magians, the Zoroastrians. I am in the house of La ilaha and I am drunk from illallah. I am in the house of La ilaha and I am drunk from illallah. Right? And then he says that Ashiq Nashudi, you will never become a lover until you really put yourself to the test. Pirani haram didam dar sahli khalisa mas. That the people who were supposed to protect the Kaaba, the defenders of the Kaaba, the guardians of the Kaaba, instead of protecting the Kaaba, what were they doing? They were dancing in front of a church. Right? So this idea of that Muslims are in a crisis, so many various crises that Muslims are suffering, and the protectors of the Kaaba who should have been defending our honor. Right? Iqbal has another Rubai. Rubai means a quadrilateral poem, 4 lines, where he says, Farangi Sayyid bast as Kaaba udair, that the Europeans came and tried to conquer the Kaaba. That when I went to the Sufis and I said, the Europeans I hear, they said, don't worry, la ghayr, they're just like us. And then he says, Bafaqih ravam wa dua farmud ya rab aqibat khayr. Then when I went to the Mawlana, to the Faqih, to the jurist, all he did was raise his hands and say, oh Allah, let us have a good end. He didn't do anything. Dua is important, but he didn't sort of try to challenge, right, the European invasion of our lands. Later on in the ghazal, Iqbal says, that, oh Allah, that what Islam does to Muslims, that takes them and connects them with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sina as kafaranas. Oh Allah, is this the valley of Sina where Musa alayhi salam received revelation? Or is this the valley of Faran where the Holy Prophet received revelation? That every atom of my being is in chaos. Right? When you're in this sort of connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The life of Mawlana, and Iqbal finishes off the ghazal where he says, Vaqtas ke bukshayam mein khana-e Rumi baz. Vaqtas ke bukshayam mein khana-e Rumi baz. Come, it's now time to open the tavern and the circuits of Mawlana. Muslims are suffering so much in this world. Right, from east to west, north to south, they're suffering politically, socially. Let us now open the wine house of Mawlana. What did he give us to drink? And he says that when I opened the wine house, I found also Attar, Junaid, and Sanai all gathered there too. All these great sort of Sufis who are also gathered in this house, the collection of all these secrets of Islam that now as Muslims who are facing the biggest challenge, the most incredible challenge they have faced in their entire history. Let us unlock all of our secrets, that what the entire Ummah has accomplished across 1400 years. Let us now show that to the world. And what Iqbal saw in Mawlana, he didn't see in anyone else. Just to read a ghazal of Mawlana before we set the mood, we're going to talk about his life and his past and how he sort of came to be. I'm going to read the Farsi and then we'll translate. He says, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ay ashiqan amadgahi vaslo liqa. Ay ashiqan amadgahi vaslo liqa. Az asaman amad nida ke ay mah ruyan as-salah. Ay sarkhushan amad tarab daman kishan. Begrifte ma zanjire ou begrifte ou daman ma. Ay haft gardum maste tu ma muhra'i dar daste tu. ای هسته ما از هسته تو در صد هزاران مرحبا. ای هفت گردون مسته تو ما مهره‌ای در دست تو. ای هسته ما از هسته تو در صد هزاران مرحبا. ای بانگ نای خوش ثمر در بانگ تو طعم شکر. آید مرا شام و سحر از بانگ تو بوی وفا. بار دیگر آغاز کن آن پرده ها را ساز کن. بر جمله خوبان ناز کن آن آفتاب خوش لقا. خاموش کن پرده مدر صغرا خاموش بخور. ستاره شو خوگیر از حلم خدا. He says, oh lovers, and this idea that all of Islam is love, right? Establishing that love with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And really what Mawlana Rumi is trying to teach you is how to cultivate that relationship of love with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala using 50,000 verses, of the Mathnawi and his Ghazaliyat. And, the parable that he gives is that, if you're married to someone, if you're totally devoted to that person, and if that person turns their back, turns their back on you, this is this idea of that you as a slave, you as a creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, turning your back on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is not an act of disobedience, but this is an act of baywafai. This is an act of disloyalty, right? That nobody loves you, rather no entity loves you more than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Mawlana Rumi wants us to understand that what Allah sees, right, when a servant turns their back on him, just like you and I feel, if we're totally devoted day and night to someone and they turn their back on us, how would you feel? And that's truly what Mawlana Rumi is saying that Islam has come to show you, is that what that ihsas is, what that feeling is of love, of your entire existence, flitting with love, right, marked with love. And if you don't have access to that, if you can't conceptualize that, then you are lost of Islam, right? That's why he says, don't talk to me about Islam and kufr. Don't talk to me about deen and kufr. Talk to me about love. Man ghulam qamara, ghayras qamar hich magu. He says, I am the slave of the moon being here the Prophet. Don't talk to me about anyone besides the Prophet. Man ghulam qamara, ghayras qamar hich magu. I am the slave of the moon. Don't talk to me about anything but the moon. Right? When you're totally obsessed and fixated with someone, you only want to hear guftagu. You only want to hear conversation about that person. And so Mawlana Rumi wants to teach you that here are the fundamentals of Islam, but let me show you the roots of Islam. Let me show you how you can fill your entire existence with the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why this ghazal is, he starts off with, oh lovers, ay ashiqan, amad gahe vaslo liqa. Oh lovers, the voice has come, vaslo liqa, for union. Right? Because we're all living in separation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but the voice of union has come. As asaman amad nida ka ay mahruyan as-salah. From the heavens has come the voice, nida, mahruyan, oh moon-faced people, right? Mahruyan, oh moon-faced people, as-salah, come and join Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, come and be united with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. From the word wasala yasilu. Ay sar khushan, amad tarab daman kishan. He says, oh sar khushan, people who are totally happy, in utter joy, you're in utter joy. Amad tarab daman kishan. The ecstasy of that entity who's literally pulling your skirt. Daman kishan. He's literally pulling your skirt. So Allah is so fixated on you, right? Allah wants you so much that He's pulling your skirt. Mawlana is saying, Bagirifte ma zanjira u. Allah is catching us with His chains. Bagirifte ma zanjira u, with His chains. U damane ma, and even our skirt. The daman is the hem of your robe. If you have a kurta, this is the daman. That in the old days, when somebody wanted to catch your attention, they would catch your daman kashi. The seven heavens are in mast of you. The seven heavens are intoxicated by you. Mast is that feeling when you get drunk. So the seven heavens are drunk with you, right? All of our existence is from the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sad hazara marhaba. Millions of greetings are now saying, come. Sad hazara marhaba. Millions of marhaba. Welcome. Right? This is this idea. What is that ayah in Surah Nahl? Right? Where the angels will come and greet you. Salamun alaykum bima sabartum fa ni'ma uqbad dar. Salamatiho tumpe. Right? So much peace upon you. Come for what you have persevered in this world. And sabr, Mawlana Rumi would say here, this is persevering with the love of Allah. There are many types of sabr, right? Sad hazara marhaba. A bonge noy khush samar. A bonge noy khush samar. The flute, that is filled with pleasant conversation. Samad, we have the word samir in Arabic, late night talk. So that nai, that flute that has late night talk, khush samad, happy late night talk. Darbongetu ta'me shakat. In the taste of you is the taste of sugar. Right? That's why that line that we recited the other day, Allah, Allah incha shirin astanam, shiru shakkar min shabat janam tamam. That Allah's name is sweeter than honey mixed with milk and sugar. Just the name of Allah is so sweet. Right? Bari digar aghoz kun. Start again for a second time. The voices in the heavens. On pardaha ra kun, all of the veils between you and Allah, break them, shatter those veils. On pardaha ra kun, but another meaning is parda is also the melodies, right? The scales. So turn those scales into instruments. The double meaning. On pardaha ra kun, barjumla khuba nas kun, all of the beautiful people, whether men and women, be arrogant with them. Nas kun is to be flirtatious, right? You say nas. So all those beautiful moon-faced people that are coming up to you and trying to distract you, nas kun. Right? Leave them on red. That's the meaning of that. Naz kun. On aftabe khush liqa. Oh sun, of which there will be a happy meaning. Right? So you can see where Mawlana Rumi is literally shouting, you know, in ecstasy. And this knowledge, you know, of that Mawlana Rumi wants to convey, he very clearly says, Man banda'i Quran agar jan daram. Man banda'i Quran agar jan daram. I am the slave of the Quran if I ever have life. As long as I have life, I am the slave of the Quran. Man dare rahe Muhammad mukhtaram. I am on the dust of the path of Muhammad, the chosen one. If anybody quotes anything other than this, az'u bayzaram wa azin sukhan bayzaram. If anybody quotes anything that's contradictory to the Quran and the Prophet, I am free from them, and they are free from this speech. Azu bayzaram wa azin sukhan bayzaram. I am free from them and I am free from their speech. Right? So this idea that, you know, Mawlana Rumi wants to teach all of us, right? That all of the secrets that he's teaching you is from the Quran and from the sacred speech of the Holy Prophet. Sarasar jumla olam pur hadisas. Vari hadisi chu hadise Mustafaku. There is so much speech in this world, but show me speech of Mustafa. Right? So this idea of what are these secrets? Right? What are these mysteries that have animated all of Islam for 1400 years? So we're going to read, we have a lot of time, I think. You guys are going to be here for a while. But we're not even 10% in. And I just want everyone to see the ecstasy, the tarab, the sarkhushi, and the masti of Mawlana, because, you know, Muslims have not felt joy in so long. And I want Muslims to feel some of the joy that Mawlana felt through the Quran, that he felt through the Prophets. And if we can resurrect that joy, if we can revive that joy, then truly, why can we not as Muslims again be people who are the Salah qafila, who are the leaders of the caravan in this world? So he says in the Masnavi in Jild Dawam, the second volume, Guftna wallahi wa billahi al-azim, malik al-mulk wa bihi rahman al-rahim, an khudai ka faristad anbiya, na bahajat balwa fazl kibriya. On Khudavan ka az khak zalil afridu shah savarani jalil. He said, by Allah and by the great Allah, of the possessor of the kingdom, the merciful and the compassionate, by the Allah who sent the prophets, faristad anbiya, who sent all the prophets, na bahajat. He did not need to send prophets, bal bafazlo kibriya, but in grace and in majesty he sent his prophets. On Khudavan ka az khak zalil afridu shah savarani jalil. That entity, that Allah, through lowly dust, created glorious writers, i.e. the Prophet. Shah Savarani Jalil. Pakshan kard az mizaj khakiyan, baguzranid az take aflakiyan. He purified the prophets from dust, right? From the mizaj, from the temperament of dust, and he made them outrun the people of the heavens, the aflakiyan. Bargarift az naranu soft. Wangah ubar jumla'i anwar taht, who took from fire and fashioned into pure light, and it outstripped all other light. He took from fire and fashioned into light. What verse in the Quran is he referencing? Lima khalaqtu biyaday. Lima khalaqtu biyaday. He created Adam alayhi salam, right? From that dust, and what? And made him what? Anwar taht. And Allah himself is all light. Allah nuru samawati wal ard. So that being that he himself created with his own hands, Allah says in Surah Safat, Lima khalaqtu biyaday. Right? آنسانا بروقی که بر ارواح تافت ناک آدم معرفت ز آن نور یافت. The splendor of lightning was shone over all the spirits, so that Adam alayhi salam gained from that light ma'rifah. Allah gained from that light ma'rifah. On kaz Adam rast و dast chid pas khalifa esh kard Adam ka on padid. The hand of Sheeth was the son, or some say the grandson of Sayyidina Adam alayhi salam. And that hand of Sheeth who took from Adam, therefore Adam made him his vizier, his khalifa. Nuh az on gohar ke barkhordar bud dar havai bahr jan dar bar bud. Since Nuh alayhi salam had also achieved that status, he showered pearls in the air of the sea of soul. Right, so it's about taking that light that Adam alayhi salam took from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he's giving it to the prophets. Right? Jane Ibrahim as on anvar zaft bay hazard dar shu'lahoy nar raft. From that radiance, the soul of Ibrahim alayhi salam went fearlessly into the flames of that fire when he was cast into the fire. Qulna ya naru kuni barda. Chunki Ismail dar juyish fatad Pish dishnai ad darash sar nihad. When Ismail alayhi salam fell into that stream of light, he laid his head before the flashing knife. Tallahu lil jabin. Right? What Allah says in the Quran. Wa tallahu lil jabin. Jani Dawood ashuash garam shud. Ohan andar daste bafash naram shud. When the soul of Dawood alayhi salam was heated by the rays of that light, then iron became soft in his hands. Wa alanna lahu al hadid. Allah says in the Quran. So you can see how Mawlana Rumi is just taking ayat of the Quran and just translating it into Farsi. That's why what do they say? Masnaviyye, ma'naviyye, mawlavi, hast Quran, dar zubane pahlavi. The Mathnavi of Mawlana is the Quran in Persian. Nist peyghambar vali darad kitab. He's no prophet, but he had a book. Nist peyghambar vali darad kitab. This is that book. Chun Sulaiman bud wa salish ra razid. Diyu gashtash bandai farman wa mutir. When Sayyidina Sulaiman alayhi salam was suckled on union with that, then the demon, i.e. the jinn Afrit, became obedient to Sayyidina Sulaiman alayhi salam. قال عفريت من الجن أنا آتيك به قبل أن يرتد إليك طرفك. Right? در قضاء يعقوب چون بنهاد سر چشم روشن کد از بوی پسر. When Sayyidina Yaqub alayhi salam lost his son and he bowed his head to destiny, that he lost his favorite son and he's bowed his head to destiny. But that same light that came from all of these prophets illuminated his eye with the scent of his own son. Right? Yusuf mahroub chud did on aftab chud chinan baydar dar ta'bir khab. When the moon-faced Yusuf saw that sun, he became so wide awake in the interpretation of dreams. So you see all of these miracles of the prophets, that every prophet had a miracle that all comes from that light of Adam alayhi salam. Right? Chun asa as daste Musa ab khurad. When the staff of Musa alayhi salam drank water from the hand of Musa, it made one mouthful of the entire empire of Fir'aun. That light, the entire empire of Fir'aun shattered under the light of Musa alayhi salam. When Isa, son of Mary, found that ladder, he sped to the highest of the fourth heaven. As Hadith Bukhari teaches us, Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam was in the fourth heaven when the Prophet met him. Chun Muhammad yaft on mulku na'im, qaras mahra kard'u dar dam donin. When the Holy Prophet gained that kingdom and that felicity, in a moment split the disk of the moon into two halves. Chun Abu Bakr ayati tawfiq shud, ba chunan shahi sahibu siddiq shud. When Sayyidina Abu Bakr became an example of that favor, he became the companion of a king and he became Siddiq. Chun Umar shaydai on ma'shuq shud, haqqu batil wa chu dili faruq shud. When Sayyidina Umar became distraught with that beloved, when he became in love with the Prophet, he became a faruq, like the heart between truth and falsehood. Haqqu batil wa chu dili faruq shud. Noor-e faiz bud was in Nourain gasht. When Uthman became a fountain of that clear water, he was light overflowing and became Dhun Nourain. Chun zaruyesh murtaza shud dar fishan gashda'u shire khuda dar marj jan. When Sayyidina Ali saw the light of the Prophet in his face, he became the shire khuda, he became the lion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the pastor of the soul. Anyways, this goes on and on as Mawlana does. But starting off, Mawlana Rumi was born in what is present-day Balkh in Afghanistan, what was then part of the Seljuk Empire. We'll be talking about the Seljuk Empire very soon. And he was born into a scholarly Hanafi Maturidi family. His father, Sultan Bahauddin, was an incredible Hanafi Mufti. Unfortunately, Mawlana Rumi was born in a time of incredible tumult and chaos in the Muslim world. Genghis Khan had started ravaging many parts of the Muslim Empire. He came to Samarkand and Bukhara, and he executed the entire population of Bukhara in one day. They say 100,000 Muslim men and women died in one night. And Sultan Bahauddin, the father of Mawlana Rumi, hearing the news of this, realized that their territory of Afghanistan was next, and they were not going to be able to defend themselves against Genghis Khan. So Sultan Bahauddin picks up, his belongings and takes his young boy, whose just name is Jalaluddin at that time, and they move from one corner of the Muslim world to the other corner of the Muslim world, which is in present day Konya, right? He moves to Konya, which is in present day Turkey. At that time, obviously, Muslims had not conquered Constantinople, right? So the farthest edge of the Muslim Empire was Konya. Another famous Muslim was also living in that era, just a 3-hour drive. His name was Urtul. Mawlana Rumi and Urtul were about 4 years apart, and they lived about a 3-hour drive from each other. So you can see how Allah sends very incredible people around the same time. Unfortunately, because of the Turkic kingdoms, they probably would not have met each other, but it's extremely interesting how they both lived in the same Anatolian Muslim Hanafi world. Mawlana Rumi grows up, and his father is hired as the Sadr Mufti, as the Grand Mufti of Konya. And the Seljuks have a lot of money because they're raiding Christian towns. So out of pillaging Christian towns, they have amassed an incredible amount of wealth. So they offer Mawlana Rumi's father a very high and luxurious salary. And Sultan Bahauddin starts to teach Mawlana Rumi some basic Arabic, and he sends Mawlana Rumi to Syria to study, what is present-day Aleppo and Damascus. The madrasa that Mawlana Rumi studied at actually still stood until the year 2012, when it was leveled to the ground. It stood for 800 years, and it was just destroyed 10 years ago. And he spent 10 years studying Arabic, tafsir, Quran, Hadith, mantiq, Arabic poetry, literature, etc. So much so that he qualified as a great Hanafi Mufti, and he returns to Konya to become the Sadr Mufti, or the head Mufti. The equivalent today would be the court judge of a town. So in Dallas you would have the leading judge of that town. That was the position of Mawlana Rumi in that town. So all court legal cases, divorce cases, marital issues, inheritance stuff, all of that went to Mawlana Rumi, and he was a Hanafi Mufti and a Hanafi Qadi. So he was a judge and a Mufti. Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani mentioned this in his Durr al-Kamina. And when he's about, they say, between 30 and 40 years old, a great Shafi'i scholar comes from the town of Tabriz, named Shamsul Haq or Shamsuddin Tabriz. And he enters the town, and Mawlana Rumi actually poetizes this. And he sees Mawlana Rumi teaching by a pond. And he asks him a series of questions. We don't have to go into these questions. This is Savalat Baraya Khasan. I don't think we should publicize these questions. And he asks him a series of questions. Mawlana Rumi asks, Kisti tu? That who are you? He had never heard, Mawlana Rumi had studied Islam for 20, 30 years, and yet he had never heard anything like this before. Kisti tu? And then Shamsul Tabriz asks him, Sirre Jani Mustafa Bagu. Tell me the secret of the soul of Mustafa. What is the secret of the soul of Mustafa? And Mawlana Rumi was like, Hanafi fiqh is not going to give you the answer to that question. And they say that he spent 40 days in khalwa, 40 days in solitude with Shamsul Haq, Shamsuddin al-Tabriz, and this transformation overtook him. So much so that, the word atish he will always use in reference to Shamsuddin Tabriz, this idea of being sort of engulfed in flames, that, oh Shamsuddin Tabriz, you set me and the whole world on fire. Right? In the famous ghazal, he says, Naman behuda girde kucha u bayzar me gardam. That I wander the streets and alleyways of the city. I'm not crazy, but I'm just wandering. And then he says, Hargiz Mawlavi nashud, ta ghulam Shamsuddin nashud. That Mawlana Rumi would never have become Mawlana unless he became the slave of Shamsuddin al-Tabriz. Right? And so clearly there's this very sort of impactful and powerful relationship between the two. And I mention all of this, right, because of the fact that, as Muslims, if you were to ask an average Muslim, they would not know who Mawlana is. They would not know just a line or two, whereas 100 years ago, any Muslim from Bosnia to Afghanistan to Iran to India to Bangladesh would have been able to quote you many, many lines of Mawlana, right? And so the loss of Mawlana is really a loss of Islam and a loss of the Ummah, right? And so this, hopefully what I'm laboring to do here is to remind everyone that there is so much here, right, that we as Muslims can take and not only just adopt in our own lives, but present this to our communities and present it to the world as we have and had, for 1,000 years. Anyways, Mawlana writes about 60,000 lines of rhyming poetry. There are about 700 Quranic ayat in the Mathnawi. And each ayat is rhymed with a line of Farsi. So for example, he'll bring a line that will say, on Ashna, and then he'll end the line with Kharra Musa Sa'iqa. Kharra Musa Sa'iqa is the line of the Quran, and he'll rhyme the Farsi with the Arabic of the Quran. So that mastery of two languages, you can see, and he'll sometimes bring Turkish and Greek, and he was, obviously a polyglot and a master of many, many languages. But let us now open the book of Mawlana, as Iqbal said, ای مطرب غزلی بیتی از مرشد روم آور طاغوت زند جانم در آتش تبریزی. That, O singer of ghazals, come and bring a line of Mawlana Rumi so that my soul may be engulfed in the flames of Shams al-Tabriz, right? And that's obviously the metaphor of Sayyidina Ibrahim being poured into the fire, right? So let us all listen. In Afghanistan, many of the ulama, they would not touch the book of Mathnawi without wudu, because there were so many ayat of the Quran and so many hadith of the Holy Prophet contained in this, and so many allusions, as we'll see. And again, man banda'i Quran, I got a John Dara, that I am a slave of the Quran as long as I have a soul. Man khake rahe dare Muhammad Mukhtar, that I am the dust of the door of Muhammad, the chosen one, right? And so I always tell people that, when you open up, the famous translation of Rumi that you find in Barnes & Noble by Coleman Barks, and all of the Islamic references and allusions are totally gone, right? And what you realize is that a lot of the European Orientalists who started becoming obsessed with Mawlana Rumi from the 18th century could not believe that our unlettered prophet of Arabia could inspire a man like Mawlana Rumi. They could not believe that, because they believed that our prophet was a violent man, and they believed that Mawlana Rumi, was the sort of possessor of all of this beauty, whereas Mawlana Rumi is telling you that all of this beauty comes from the prophet. Man khake rahe dare Muhammad Mukhtar. Right? We will read the Farsi, and then we'll translate. I just want you to hear the sort of music of the Farsi, and then we'll start. And obviously, Aghani Azizan, if you want to do any tasheeh, agar tasheeh bashad, please bafarmayid. So he starts off with Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. بشنو از می چون حکایت می کند از جدایی ها شکایت می کند کز نیستان تا مرا ببریده اند در نفیر مردوزن نالیده اند سینه خواهم شرح از فراق تا بگویم شرح درد اشتیاق هر کسی که او دور ماند از اصل خیش باز جوید روزگار وصل خیش من بحر جمعیت نالان شدم جفت بدحالان و خوشحالان شدم هر کسی از ظن خود شد یار من از درون من نجست اسرار من سر من از ناله من دور نیست لیک چشم و گوش را آن نور نیست تن ز جان و جان ز تن مستور نیست لیک کس را دید جان دستور نیست آتش است این بانگ نای نیست باد هر که این آتش ندارد نیست باد آتش عشق است آتش عشق است که اندر می فتاد جوشش عشق است که اندر می فتاد نی حریف هر که از یاری برید پرده هایش پرده های ما درید همچون ای زهری و تریاقی که دید همچون ای دمساز و مشتاقی که دید نی حدیث راه پرخون می کند قصه های عشق مجنون می کند محرم این هوش جز بیهوش نیست مرزبان را مشتری جز گوش نیست در غم ما روزها بیگاه شد روزها با سوزها همراه شد روزها گر رفت گو رو باک نیست تو بمان ای آن که چون تو پاک نیست هر که جز ماهی ز آبش زید. So just so that it's not too much Mathnawi, let's do another ghazal of Mawlana. ای عاشقان من خاک را گوهر کنم. ای عاشقان من خاک را گوهر کنم. وای مطربان دف شما پرزر کنم. ای تشنگان امروز سقایی کنم. و این خاکدان خشک را جنت کنم کوثر کنم. و این خاکدان خشک را جنت کنم کوثر کنم. ای بیکسان جا الفرج هر خسته غمدیده را سلطان کنم سنجر کنم. ای کیمیا در من نگر زیرا که ای کیمیا در من نگر زیرا که من دیر را مسجد کنم صدا را منبر کنم. ای کافران قفل شما را وا کنم زیرا که مطرق حاکمم مؤمن کنم کافر کنم. ای بلعلا مومی تو اندر کف ما خنجر شوی صاغر شوی خنجر کنم. تو نطفه بودی خون شدی وانگه چونین موزون شدی. سوی من آی آدمی تا زینت نیکوتر کنم. من غصه را شادی کنم گمراه ها هادی کنم. من گرگ را یوسف کنم من زهر را شکر کنم. ای گلستان از گلستانم گل ستان آن دم که ریحان هات را من جفت نیلوفر کنم. ای آسمان حیران تر از نرگس شوی. ای آسمان حیران تر از نرگس شوی چون خاک را عنبر کنم چون خار را عبهر کنم. ای عقل کل تو هرچه گفتی صادقی حاکم توی من گفتگو کمتر کن. So he says, oh lovers, I have turned dust into jewels. Man khak ra gawhar kunam. Right? And this is a reference to the hadith in Bukhari that the Holy Prophet ﷺ said that when a servant starts to become close to me by fulfilling all of their fara'id, by fasting, by praying, by giving zakat and by giving hajj, but my slave abdi taqarraba ilayya bin nawafil, but my slave becomes closer to me with nawafil, and so much so that I become the ears by which he hears. This is Bukhari hadith. This is not, some fabrication from India. This is a hadith in Bukhari. Allah says that إِذَا تَقَرَّبَ إِلَيَّ عَبْدِي, I become the ears by which he sees, the ears by which he hears, the eyes by which he sees, the nose by which he smells. Right? So that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's light has filled all of your existence. So Mawlana Rumi is saying that, oh lovers, when you have that love, when Allah, and this idea, what is tasawwuf but becoming close to Allah? Once you have achieved that proximity, what can you do in the world? How can you change the world? He says, I have attained that love. Oh lovers, I have turned dust into jewels. Oh singers, I'll turn your wooden drum into gold. I'll fill it with gold. Ay tishnagan. Oh those who are thirsty, you want water? Ay tishnagan, imru saqayi kunam. Come and I'll give you water to drink. Who is the famous saqayi? Sayyidina Abbas radiallahu anhu, right? He used to, in Hajj, they would have the people who give you water, right? That's a saqayi. Through the love of Allah, I have turned this lowly dust-filled earth, Jannat kunam, Kawsar kunam. I have turned it into paradise. I have turned it into Kawthar, into a flowing spring. Ay baykasan, oh those who don't have anybody in this world. Baykasan, you have literally nobody. Ay baykas, you have no one. Ja al-faraj, relief has. Everyone who has grief, everyone who is just exhausted in this world, of just living in this world, Sultan kunam, Sanjar kunam, I'll turn them into a king. Sultan kunam, Sanjar kunam. Ay kimia, oh alchemist. The kimia comes from the Arabic word alchemy. Ay kimia, oh chemist or alchemist, look at me, darman niga, look at me. Zira ke, why? Ke man sadder ra masjid kunam, I turned 100 temples into masjids. Saddar ra mimbar kunam, and I turned, how would you translate dar? I turned 100 houses into mimbars. Right? Ay kafiran qufle shuma ra va kunam. O kafirs, all of the locks on your heart, I'm going to unlock them. Vakuna, right? I'll unlock the locks of your heart. What is the verse in the Quran? Allah talks about the locks on their heart. There's literally Surah Baqarah, sorry.
Yeah.
How many, the thing with Mawlana Rumi is that you better be a hafiz, otherwise you're going to miss the references. But Allah says, Taba Allahu ala qulubihim. Allah has put a lock on their hearts because they can't listen. So he says, after becoming so close to Allah, I can remove the locks from your heart. That's why, Abdullah ibn Salam radiallahu anhu, the Jewish person who converted to Islam, said that I just looked on the face of the Prophet and I became Muslim. هذا ليس بوجه كذاب. This is not the face of a liar. Right? That's the interaction that the Prophet can unlock. Right? Obviously, who is closer to Allah than the Holy Prophet? So then he says that, oh Kafir, you come too. Nobody's barred from my majlis. That's why Abu Sa'id al-Khayr, what is the famous line that he says? In dargahi ma dargahi naumidi neez. That the place of Islam is not the place of hopelessness. If you have broken your tawbah 1,000 times, come. If you have broken your tawbah 1,000 times, come. What's the exact Farsi? I got tawbah, I got hazar bar. I got tawbah shikasti baza. If you have broken your tawbah 1,000 times, still come. Even if you're, but parasti kafir, come. Just come to our court. Allah's rahmati wasi'at kulla shay. Allah's mercy envelops everything. Right? So Mawlana Rumi is saying that, come, O Kafir, I will, my place is open to you too. Right? That as Muslims, we're exactly, nobody should be, despair from Allah. I don't understand that line, so I'm not going to do it. Tu nutfa budi khun shudi, vangeh chuni mawzun shudi. Suye man ay adami ta zinat niku tar kunam. Man ghussara shadi kunam. I'll turn anger into joy. MashaAllah. Shadi, so the word shadi, very interesting between India and Afghanistan. So shad in Farsi means happiness, shadi means joy. But in Pakistan, shadi means wedding. And actually in Farsi, shadi means one joy. Because in Pakistan, the one day of happiness is your wedding day. That's why. The one day of happiness is just the day you get married. The next day.
Is that a reference to how they say dying is like returning to Allah is like your wedding night? Is that
No. This is just Pakistani men are the weakest way.
I was wondering if that's why
I'm just kidding. I'm not. I turn anger into joy. Right? And I make people who are misguided, guided. I lead them to the straight path. Right? Man gurgra Yusuf kunam. I turn the wolf into Yusuf alayhi salam. That's what I can do. Man gurgra Yusuf kunam. Man zaharra shakkar kunam. I'll turn poison into sugar. Right? Because if you think about it, everything that exists in this world exists on the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everything is just kun fayakun. Right? So there is no real objective nature to anything. Everything is just the command of Allah. So if you have that proximity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you that permission, what can't you do? Right? The great Sufi of Herat, Abdullah Ansari, great muhaddith to Ibn Taymiyyah, Shaykh al-Islam actually wrote a commentary on one of his books, Abdullah Ansari of Herat radiallahu anhu. He said that, in his era, he said, I forget the exact Farsi, but he says that, if you're so close to Allah that you can fly in the sky, who cares? He's like, if you can become, a fish in the sea and swim with the sharks, that's no big deal. But if you can, but if you can make someone's heart, that's the true karama, that's the true miracle. If you can, make someone's day, that's the true miracle of the Sufis. Ey asaman hayran tar az nargish. Oh heavens, you have become more amazed and more perplexed than the narcissus flower. The idea of the narcissus flower, it's so dazzling, it's so beautiful that it looks like it's confused. So when you look at it, you also sort of become confused, right? And that's also where we get the word narcissist from, right? A narcissist. چون خاک را عنبر کنم. I'll turn dust into perfume. چون خاک را عنبر کنم. Anyway, sorry. That was, hopefully, is this still going online?
Do you want me to end it?
That's okay. That's okay. Has Dallas ever had a majlis like this before? Or?
No.
Oh man, this is a story for the shikasta dil, you know? Bismillah. انکار کردن موسی علیه السلام بر مناجات شبان. How Sayyidina Musa alayhi السلام took offense at the prayer of the shepherd. دید موسی یک شبانی راه برا که او همی گفت ای خدا ای اله تو کجایی تا شبم من چاکرت چار وقت دوزم کنم شانه سرت جامعت شویم شیشاهایت کشم شیر پیشت آورم ای محتشم دستکت بوسم به مالم پای کت وقت خواب آید برویم جای کت ای فدای تو همه بزهای من ای بدایایت هی او هیهای من. این نمت بیهوده می گفت آن شبان گفت موسی با کیست این ای فلان گفت با آن کس که ما را آفرید این زمین و چرخ از او آمد پدید گفت موسی های خبر سر شدی خود مسلمان ناشده کافر شدی این چه جاش و چه کفر است و فشار پنبه اندر دهان خود فشار. So Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam saw a shepherd making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, lifting his hands towards the sky in the open field with his flock. And he's saying that, Oh Allah, ay Khuda, ay Ilah, Oh my Lord, Oh Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where are you? Why? So that I may become your servant, chawkat, right? That I can sew your shoes and comb your head. He's speaking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala like this, that where are you that I can, because this is how a servant would live in that world, right? You fix up their shoes, you clean their shoes, you comb them, you cut their hair, you prepare their clothes, you make their food, right? So he's saying, Jama'at shuyam, right? That I may wash your clothes, right? And that I may kill the lice on your head and bring milk to you. How can I come and bring milk to you, O Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? This is the idea of what does it mean to love? That you want to be in total, bring milk to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ay muhtasham, O exalted one, right? That I may kiss your little hand and rub your little foot. This may, just hold on, this may sound very blasphemous, but Mawlana Rumi is a mufti, so he knows what he's doing. That I may kiss your little hand and rub your foot. And when bedtime comes, I may sweep your room. Oh, to whom all my goats be sacrificed, because he's a shepherd. So the only value, the highest value that a shepherd knows is his goat. So he's like, oh Allah, the highest value to me is my goats. May I give all of them to you, right? Oh, you who is in remembrance of all of my cries, my hayhat, right? All of my cries are for you. Oh Allah, you're that entity. In namte behuda, these foolish words the shepherd was speaking, Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam comes. And he says, who are you speaking to like this? Saying that you're going to come and, clean my room and sweep the floor and kill the lice? And Musa is hearing, Ay Khuda, Ay Ilah. Guft, Ba'an kas ke mara afarid, in zamin o charkho azu amad padid. The shepherd said that I'm speaking to the one who created us. He created you and me, by whom this earth and sky were all brought to sight. Musa alayhi salam said, listen, you have become you have literally lost your head, right? In fact, you have left Islam. How can you speak to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala like this? خود مسلمان ناشده کافر شدی. You are not Muslim, you have left Islam. Right? این چه جاست و چه کفر است و فشار پنبه اندر دهان خود فشار. He says, what babble is this? What behuda speech is this? What blasphemy? What kufr? He says, put some cotton in your mouth. Right? Literally put some cotton under dihan. Put some cotton. How dare you speak? How can you speak to Allah with so much bay-adabi? You know, Mawlana Rumi in the beginning of the matter, he says, "Ey Khuda juyim tawfiq adab." Bay-adab man mahroom as fazlida. That, oh Allah, I only seek adab from Allah. Because that person who doesn't have adab is deprived of all of the fadl, of all of the grace of Allah. Right? So Sayyidina Musa says, Gande kufre tu jahan ra gundakar. Gandakar. Right? That the stench, literally in Urdu we say ganda, right? This comes from Farsi. Gande kufre tu jahan ra gandakar, kufre tu deba yedin ra jandakar. He says that the stench of your blasphemy has made the whole world stink. Right? This the Quran. ظهر الفساد في البر والبحر بما كسبت أيدي الناس. That the heavens and the earth have become fasid because of the sins of human beings. Right? So he says the stench of your blasphemy has made the whole world stink. Your blasphemy has turned the silk of religion into rags. That the silk robe, the very fancy robe of Islam, your blasphemy has caused it to stink, to smell. And then he says, چارق و پاتاب لایق مر تو راست آفتابی را چنین ها کی رواست. He says that shoes, you know, that he was saying that, oh Allah, I'm going to come and, you know, fix your shoes and put on your socks. He says that shoes and socks are fitting for you. How can this be right for a son? Let alone Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just for the son. You can't even put socks because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't have form, right? Sort of in the way that we imagine it for human beings. گر نبندی زین سخن تو حلق را آتشی آید بسوزد خلق را. That if you don't stop speaking this bay-adabi, this lack of respect to Allah, a fire is going to come and burn everyone. We're all going to be, adab is going to come from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How can you speak like this to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Put some cotton in your mouth, otherwise we're all going to be punished. Right? So put some, you know, stop these words from coming out of your halq, from your throat, otherwise punishment will come to the khalq. Right? گر همی دانی که یزدان داور است گر همی دانی که یزدان داور است جاج گستاخی تو را چون باور است. If you know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the judge, is the dawar, then how is it right for you to speak with such disrespect to Allah? Right, I'm skipping some lines. با که می گویی تو این یا اما خال جسم و حاجت در صفات و ذل جلال. To whom are you speaking? Are you talking to your uncle, to your amma or your khalu? Is this how you speak to your creator? Right? Are you speaking to your uncle, your maternal uncle, or your paternal uncle? Right? That you know, does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have needs of bodily needs or physical needs? He's Dhul Jalal. He's the owner of all majesty. Right? That آن که گفت اینی مریضتو لم تعد من شدم رنجور او تنها نشد. Right? Sorry, we'll skip some of these lines. And he says, گر تو مردی را بخوانی فاطمه گرچه یک جنسد مرد و زن همه. If you call a man Fatima, even though men and women of all kind, قصد خون تو کند تا ممکن است. He might try to kill you. If you call a man Fatima, قصد خون تو کند تا ممکن است. It's very possible he'll come and kill you. Even though men and women are of the same kind. But he says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and human beings are not the same kind. Right? بی ادب گفتن سخن با خاص حق دل بمیرن سیاه دارد ورق. And he says to speak, just to speak بی ادب, to speak disrespectfully to a man of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala causes the heart to perish. So imagine speaking disrespectfully to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? So first he starts off with Allah, then the chosen prophets, and then just a normal man. If you call a normal woman a man or a normal man Fatima, they'll try to kill you. Right? Fatima madh as dar haqqi zanan. If you call a woman Fatima, that's praise. Right? Or if you call a man Umar, that's praise. But reversing that is what? Mard ra guyi buad zakhme sinan. But if you address it to the man, it's a bow of a spear. They'll attack you. Dast do pa dar haqqi ma sataish ast, dar haqqi paki haqq alaish ast. Hand and foot are praised in relation to us. It's praiseworthy, obviously, for us to have hands and feet. But in relation to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's disrespectful. It's disrespectful to relate this. And then Mawlana Rumi says, لم يلد لم يولد او را لایق است والد و مولود را او خالق است. Allah is لم يلد and لم يولد. He did not give birth, nor was he begotten. Right? He is the creator of the walid and the mawlud. He is the creator of the one who gave birth and the one who was given birth to. And then after Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam rebuked him all this, right? How could you speak so disrespectfully? Guft ay Musa dahanam dukhti vaz peshemani tu janam sukhti jama ra badarid wa ahi kard tuft sar nahad andar bayabani raft. The shepherd said, "Oh Musa, you have closed my mouth and you have burned my soul with repentance." He tore his jama. He tore, we say kurta pajama, right? That's the same jama in Farsi, right? He tore his kurta, he tore his clothes, wa'ahi kard taf, and he heaved a sigh. And he turned his head and he ran into the forest, just out of shame. Obviously, Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam is Kalimullah, Kallamallahu Musa taklim. Now the next passage is very interesting. عتاب کردن حق تعالی با موسی علیه السلام از بحر آن شبان. How Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rebuked Musa alayhi salam. So Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam rebuked the shepherd. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rebukes Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam. وحی آمد سوی موسی از خدا بنده ما را از ما کردی جدا تو برای وصل کردن آمدی نه برای فصل کردن آمدی. The revelation came to Musa alayhi salam that you have separated my servant from me. That, oh Musa alayhi salam, did I send you to unite hearts or did I send you to separate hearts? That what is the purpose of a prophet? To come and bring hearts together. So why have you separated this heart from me? Ta tawani ta manah andar firaq abghadul ashyai indi at-talaq. Tirmidhi hadith. He says that as far as you can, do not set foot in separation. And then he quotes a hadith in Tirmidhi that the most despicable thing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is divorce. Inna abghad al-ashyai indi. So you see, do you see how he separate, how he rhymed? Right? Tawani ta manah andar firaq abghad al-ashyai indi at-talaq. Look how he rhymed both lines. So as far as you can, O Musa alayhi salam, do not separate people. Don't separate people. Your job, any scholar that separates people, how can he call himself a scholar? Right? Your idea as an alim of deen is to bring people together. Right? The most despicable thing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, just imagine a man and a wife, separating that is the most despicable thing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In the Quran in Surah Baqarah, when black magic was being taught to people, what do Harut and Marut say about this magic? ما يتفرقوا ما يفرق به بين المرء وزوجه. That the worst thing about this magic is that it separates people. Right? هر کسی را سیرتی بنهاده‌ام هر کسی را اصطلاحی داده‌ام. I have given every way of acting. Everyone has their own way of acting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everyone has their own love language with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? I have هر کسی را اصطلاحی داده‌ام. I have given everyone their own form of istilah, of expression, their own vocabulary. Everyone has their own vocabulary. When I was in madrasa, we have to read the whole Quran according to one of the 7 rawis of the Quran. And after we finish, and now we can recite every letter with tajweed and all of the rules of tajweed and hadar and mashq. Our teacher quoted the hadith of Sahih Muslim, where the Holy Prophet ﷺ said that whoever reads the Quran well, Allah gives him 1 reward. But whoever struggles to read it, he gets 2 rewards. Right? And so this idea that person who doesn't have good tajweed, but they're trying day in, day out, they have their own vocabulary, their own language. They're not even reading Quran properly, but the Prophet is saying he gets 2 rewards. فارسی گو اگرچه تازی خوشتر است عشق را صد زبان دیگر است. Speak Farsi even though Arabic is so much sweeter. Love has 100 other languages. در حق او مدح و در حق تو ذم. در حق او مدح و در حق تو ذم. در حق او شهد و در حق تو سم. So Allah is speaking to Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam. In regards to him, it is praise. But maybe for you, it's blame. So you see someone who, you think they're being disrespectful, but, it's tough to say because obviously there's a lot of weird ideas and ideologies right now, so we can't take this too far. But, I'm just, it's not, but obviously, and I'm not saying that this is, but, if people have their own way of connecting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right, and it's bringing them closer, obviously it's not haram, then who are we to say that this is wrong? And this is what Mawlana Rumi is trying to say, that every human being is not the same. How can you say it's, somebody asked Mawlana Rumi in a majlis, that when is all of humanity going to unite? When is all of humanity going to become one? He said that how can all of us become one in the dunya? It's only going to happen in the akhirah, because the dunya is change. All of the dunya is change. If two brothers can't even become one, how can all of humanity come to one? How can all of humanity have the exact same expression of love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And that he's not talking about, obviously Mawlana Rumi is not saying Mr. Namaz or doing anything like that. He's talking about the highest form of love. We're all going to express love towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why some people's tabi'ah, they're very strict, they're very rigid. But I have some uncles like that. They're just very quiet, but they never laugh, they never smile. But when you say the Prophet's name, alayhi salatu wasalam, they bow their heads. They've never kissed any of their children, they've never hugged any of their children in their life. It is people that I've seen in my own life, my own family members. But when you say the Prophet's name, they bow their heads and they say alayhi salatu wassalam. Some people have a relationship of love like that. Some people's, relationship of love with Allah is just giving, charity. They cannot stop giving charity. Their fasting might not be great. Their namaz might not be great. Everyone obviously has their own relationship of expressing love to Allah. And it's about finding how that love works for you. How can you love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that works with your fitrah, with your nature, right? How can you love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in your own language? He says, Hinduan ra istilahi Hindi mad, Sindhiyan ra istilahi Sindh mad. With the Hindus, the idiom of India is praiseworthy. With the Sindhis, the idiom of Sindh is praiseworthy. Right? Me speaking, Turkish to Indians, and I'm praising them for 12 hours, it's not going to mean anything. And if I say one word in Hindi, right, it'll mean something to them. Man nagardam pak as tasbih shan, pak ham ishan shavan wa darfishan. Allah says that I am not sanctified by the glorification. Allah's status does not raise. Allah is, Allah does not need to be glorified by us. Right? It is that they become sanctified. Right? Pak ham ishan shavan. They become sanctified by glorifying me. Ma zuban ra nanigarim wa qal ra. Ma ravan ra benigarim wa hal ra. I look not at the tongue and the speech. I look at the inward and the state. This is the hadith in Sahih Muslim. What is the hadith? إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَنْظُرُ إِلَى صُوَرِكُمْ وَلَا يَنْظُرُ إِلَى قُلُوبِكُمْ. Hadith in Sahih Muslim. So look how Mawlana Rumi is just taking from the hadith in the Quran. مَا رَفَانْ رَا بِنِّغَرِيمُ هَال رَا. So Allah says that I don't look at the qal, I don't look at the speech, but I look at the hal. ناظر قلبیم اگر خاشع بود گرچه گفت لفظ ناخاضع رود. I gaze into the heart whether it be humble, even though the words may not be humble. So even if what they're saying, right, may not sound that sort of praiseworthy or humbling, but Allah looks at the hearts. Allah doesn't look at the forms, right? آتشی از عشق در جان برفروز سر بسر فکر و عبادت را بسوز. Light up a fire of love in your soul. Light up a fire of love in your soul. Burn thought and expression entirely. Forget all these words. Light up that fire of love in your soul. موسیا آداب دانان دیگرن سوخت جان و روانان دیگرن. Oh Musa, know that the conventions are of one sort, but those whose souls burn are of another category entirely. عاشقان را هر نفس سوز دیدنی است. برد ویران خراج و عشر نیست. To lovers there is burning at every moment. There's no tax on a ruined village. If the village is ruined, you're not going to collect tax from them, right? But for the lovers, every single moment you're burning. ملت عشق از همان دین ها جداست عاشقان را ملت و مذهب خداست. The religion of love is separate from all religions. مذهب عشق, the religion of love is separate from all religions. For lovers, the religion is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. ملت عشق از همان دین ها جداست عاشقان را ملت و مذهب خداست. بعد از آن در سر موسی حق نهفت رازهایی که آن نمی آید و گفت. After that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hid in the innermost heart of Sayyidina Musa mysteries which cannot be spoken. بر دل موسی سخنها ریختند دیدن و گفتن به هم آمیختند. Words were poured into his heart. Vision and speech were mingled together. چند به خود گشت و چند آمد به خود چند پرید از ازل سوی ابد. How often did he become beside himself and how often did he return to himself? How often did he fly from eternity to everlastingness? ور بگویم عقلها را برکند ور نویسم بس قلمها بشکن. If I were to speak it, it would root up my mind, and if I were to write it, it would shatter many pens. چون که موسی این عتاب از حق شنید در بیابان در پی چوپان دوید. When Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam heard this reproach from Allah, he ran into the desert looking for the shepherd. He pushed on over the footprints of the bewildered man and he scattered dust from the skirt of the desert. گام پای مردم شوریده خود همز گام دیگران پیدا بود. That the footsteps of a man distraught is in truth distinct from the footsteps of other people. If you're distraught, their footsteps are different. At last he overtook him. عاقبت دریافت او را و بدید گفت مجدده که دستوری رسید. At last Sayyidina Musa found him and he looked at him. The giver of glad news said that permission has come. هیچ آدابی و ترتیبی مجو هرچه میخواهد دل تنگت بگو. Do not seek any rules and method for love. Say whatever your distressful, your grief-stricken heart desires. When your heart is in grief, that's why they say that, some people, when they're in so much grief, taklif is lifted from them, right? Because they can't even think properly, right? Kufri tu dinas wa dinat nur jan aymanu imani wa zatu jahani dar aman. That your blasphemy is your religion, and your religion is the light of the spirits. You are saved, and through you is a whole world of salvation. Ay ma'af yaf'al Allahu ma yasha bay mahaba wa zaban ra bargusha. Oh you who are forgiven and you are made secure with yaf'al Allahu ma yasha. Allah can do whatever He wants. If Allah wants to accept this, who are we to question Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's actions? Go and speak whatever you want. Ra bargusha. I reminded of another line. Some Arabs had plundered an Iranian caravan, and the Iranians had said that the Arabs have they have destroyed us. And a very lover of the Prophet in that gathering said, don't open your tongue for our friend is Arab. But here Musa says, open your tongue because Allah has given you permission. گفت ای موسی از آن بگذشته‌ام من اکنون در خون دل آغشته‌ام. He said, oh Musa, I have passed beyond that. I am now bathed in the blood of the heart. He has done qurbani of himself. من ز سدره منتهى بگذشته‌ام زد هزاران سال ز آن سو رفته‌ام. I have passed beyond Sidratul Muntaha. I have gone 100,000 years journey on the other side. محرم ناسوت ما لاهوت باد آفرین بر دست او بر هر که پیروزی روزش دیر شد در نیابت حال پختا هیچ خام پس سخن کوتاه باید و سلام. So this is the first section of the Mathnawi of Mawlana. As I mentioned yesterday, my teacher of Tirmidhi, when we were in Dawra Hadith, Mufti Amjad in Azadville, would say that 3 people in all of history, when they would put their pen to paper, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would do the rest. He said the first was Imam al-Bukhari, the second was Mawlana Rumi, and the third was Allama Iqbal, the ilham was just brimming through all of their work. So he starts off with the letter Ba. Does anybody know he starts off with the letter Ba?
That's the beginning of Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
Right, because Allah begins the Quran with the letter Ba. Right, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Bishno, listen, come and listen. But also what's very interesting is that what is the first revelation given to the Holy Prophet? Iqra, it's a command, read. So here Mawlana, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Mawlana Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives a command, Iqra, read, Parho, and Mawlana Rumi says, Bishno, listen. So revelation starts with the command, with the fi'la amr. Bishno az nahi chu hikayat mein kunad, az judai ha shikayat mein kunad. He says that listen to how the reed is this flute. So in the old Muslim world, in order to create this instrument, you had a reed bed, what we call the nayistan, and you would cut it, and then you would form a flute with it. Right? So he says, Bishno az nahi chu hikayat mein kunad, az judai ha shikayat mein kunad. Listen to how this flute tells its tale. From separation, see how it complains. Now, there are many metaphors in this in this verse. Now, what Mawlana Rumi is referencing and alluding here is that as Muslims, as human beings, when we enter the world of souls, we become separated and we feel grief. And Mawlana Rumi is creating this analogy with a human being, and obviously there are many layers. There's obviously the marad haq, which we will talk about later, but just a human being, as soon as insan enter this world, he enters into a state of separation, into a state of firaq, right? And this idea of separation, that in the same way that reed is being separated from its reed bed and it's lamenting, it's weeping, it's wailing, we too, human beings, constantly feel the ache of separation. So Mawlana Rumi wants to understand that all of existence is what he's saying can be understood through separation. And that's what many ayat in the Quran say what? وَإِلَيْنَا تُرْجَعُونَ. You are going to reunite with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why the first ghazal we said, وَاسْلَوْ لِقَاء. Everything is about union. Right? When you reunite with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The last words of the Prophet, as mentioned in Bukhari, Allahumma alhaqna bil rafiq al-a'la. Oh Allah, unite us with the highest friend. That's why the Arabs used to say, al-mawtu jisrun yusil al-habiba ila al-habib. That death is a bridge that connects you, that reunites you. Right? So that we as Muslims must understand that our first act and our first memory is that of separation. Because in the world of souls, we lived in union. The Prophet said in a hadith in Bukhari alayhi salatu wassalam, al-arwahu junudun mujannada, faman i'tanasa minha i'tanasa fiha, wa man ikhtalafa minha ikhtalafa fiha. That the souls in that world used to be like barracks, like army camps. Junudun mujannada. Whomsoever you got along with there, you'll get along with here. Whomsoever you didn't get along with there, you won't get along with here. So this idea, right, that we have a pre-existence. And this reed, that song that you hear, that song is actually not a song, but it's a wailing, it's a lamenting. Kaz naistan tha mara baburidaan dar nafira mardozan nalidaan. That he says that ever since that the reed is speaking, that ever since I was separated from the reed bed, my lament has caused all men and women to cry. That I have brought everyone weeping. Interestingly, in a hadith in Bukhari, the Prophet said, "Iqra'ul Qur'ana bil huzn." That read the Quran with grief. فَإِنَّهُ أُنزِلَ بِالْحُزْنِ. Because it has been revealed with grief. And if you can't weep, فَتَبَاكِ, then try to weep. Right? And this idea that with the Quran comes grief. And Mawlana Rumi is alluding to all of this just in 2 lines. Also, this idea of separation, of being cut, right? Because you have to cut the reed in order to create the flute. In the same surah, what is Allah? اقرأ بسم ربك الذي خلق الذي علم بالقلم. Allah teaches by the pen. The word qalam in Arabic, does anybody know the base meaning? It means to, in Arabic we say qalmul adfar. It means to cut. Allama bil qalam. So because in the old days in Arabia, what was a pen? It was a reed pen. So you'd have to cut the reed too. So Mawlana Rumi is alluding to 4 ayat here, just in 2 lines. Allama bil qalam. So what is qalama? Means to katna, to cut. So but we are being cut. We have been cut from alamul arwah. We have been cut from the world of souls. That's why what happens when we are born? We come out Weeping. Why do all babies come out weeping? Mawlana Rumi says because of separation, because of pain. We all feel separation. We're all being put into pain, right? Because we're being separated from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And if we can acknowledge that separation, we acknowledge that grief, that we are being separated. And that's what the Quran comes, to reunite you, to reawaken that fitrah. فطرة الله التي فطر الناس عليها. سینه خواهم شرح از فراق تا بگویم شرح درد اشتیاق. By the way, Mawlana Rumi was a hafiz of Quran. Not just a hafiz of Hadith and hafiz of fiqh, he was also a hafiz of Quran as well. سینه خواهم شرح از فراق تا بگویم شرح درد اشتیاق. He says that my chest wants to be cut apart by separation. Sharha as firaq, out of separation, it wants to be cut apart so that the heart can emerge, right? Ta baguyam sharh dard ishtiyaq, that I may give a commentary of the pain of longing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That I may give a commentary, a sharh, right? So he's playing on the word sharh. Also, where does the word sharh come in the Quran? Where does the word sharh and chest come in the Quran? Alam nashrah laka sadrak. What does nashrah laka sadrak mean? Allah cuts your heart open. So and obviously Alam nashrah is on the other side of the page. So Alam nashrah is on the other side of the page. You see how Mawlana Rumi is literally line by line, just doing it parallel. I mean, that brilliance we don't see today. There's nobody who can do that brilliance I have seen in hundreds of years. That's why the ulama, when you became the most senior alim in your town, as a Hanafi Mufti, you would say the Mathnawi of Mawlana, because it was seen as, A'la al-ulum, the highest of, because he brought all of the knowledge in one kitab. Sina khaham sharha az firaq, my chest wants to be torn apart because by the sharh al-sadr, alam nashrah laka sadrak, wa wada'na anka wizrak, that Allah has removed that burden from you. What is that burden? Mawlana Rumi says, ta baguyam sharh dard ishtiyaq, but sharh also means a commentary, right? You say, sharh al-hadith, sharh al-Quran. So my heart wants to be, my chest wants to be torn apart for the light of Allah. Also, أَفَمَنْ شَرَحَ اللَّهُ صَدْرَهُ لِلْإِسْلَامِ. Same ayah, right? طَابَقُيَمْ شَرْهِ دَرْدِ اشْتِيَاقِ, that it can tell the story of pain, right? That when we come out from the womb weeping, right? Why are we weeping? هر کسی که او دور ماند از اصل خیش، سبحان الله، هر کسی دور ماند از اصل خیش، باز جوید روزگار وصل خیش. Everyone who is left far from their source, everyone who is not at home, everyone from their asl, they're all trying to come home. They're all looking for their origin. They're all looking for their identity. Right? Rumi's Mathnawi, as I keep telling you, this is a story of identity. What is our identity? So we're all seeking that. What is the root of all of us? Where is the asl? Where is the asl? Man bahar jam'iyyate nalan shuda. In every company, I started weeping. Man bahar jam'iyyate nalan shuda. Jufte bad halan wa khush halan shuda. I interacted. I saw those who were bad halan, who were in a terrible condition. And I also saw those who were happy. I saw both. But I was weeping everywhere because wherever I went, I couldn't find my asl. Where is my asl? Where do I feel at home? Where do I find, right? Where my origin is? Where this origin story? Har kasi az zanne khud shud yar man. Har kasi az zanne khud shud yar man. Az daruni man najus asrar man. Obviously, again, this is the reed flute speaking, but Mawlana Rumi speaking through the reed flute because he saw the highest analogy of the human being was the reed flute in terms of separation and weeping. Right? And that's why Iqbal said that the two greatest people, the two people in all of history that had the greatest mind for parables was Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam and Mawlana Rumi. The highest mind for misal, he said. Everyone thinks they're my friend. Right? Everyone thinks that, they're my... But they never sought the mysteries that lay within me. All these mysteries, that grief. Right? That's why... sometimes people say that, why do you talk about bad things? Don't be negative, just be positive. But Mawlana Rumi is saying that I have grief in me. Talk to me about this grief. Talk to me about this separation. Talk to me about this mourning, this lamenting. That pain that you feel and that I feel, let's talk about this pain together. Right? My secret is not far from my complaint. That my weeping that you hear, the secret lays within that. Because why am I weeping? Because I want to go back. I want to go back and reunite with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when I weep and I feel that pain, my secret lays within that. Lek chashma goosh ra on noor nees. But the eye and the ear don't have the light to understand. And another place in the Mathawi, Mawlana says, goosh ban, lab ban, chashan ban. Agar noor hat na aman, barman bakhad. That close your ears from all sin, close your eyes from all sin, close your tongue from all sin. If the light of Allah does not come inside you, then mock me in the streets. Right? That light. Once that light comes within you, then you live in a whole other existence. As Imam Ghazali says, that I studied all of Greek logic, all of Greek philosophy. But once I started to adopt the sunnah of the Holy Prophet through discipline, alayhi salatu wasalam, I felt a light that nobody else felt, that I couldn't even describe. That's why, when somebody eats something extremely military, extremely hot, they're like, it's very hot. But even me saying that it's very hot doesn't capture the reality of how spicy it is. And what Mawlana Rumi is saying, that experience that you can go through when you experience the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you cannot put it into words. All dami makhfiz zayr zuban. That human beings are hidden under tongue, because expression can only capture so much of what you feel. The body is not veiled from the soul, and the soul is not veiled from the body. Right, they're together. What you do with your body affects the soul. But they're not hidden from each other, they're in dialogue with each other. Right? But nobody can see the soul. It's not common, it's not a dastur, it's not a practice to see the soul. So how do we understand this relationship? وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الرُّوحِ قُلِ الرُّوحُ مِنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّي وَمَا أُوتِيتُم مِنَ الْعِلْمِ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. And they ask you about the soul, but you have been given only a little knowledge. But maybe we can see a little bit. Allah didn't say you have been given no knowledge. Allah says you've been given a little bit of knowledge. And that little bit of knowledge compared to Allah's knowledge is obviously, will always be little. But let's see a little of that knowledge in the Mathnawi. This noise of that reed is fire, it is not wind. Because when you're playing a flute, how are you playing the flute? You're blowing into it, right? That's a type of wind. And how are you producing sound? It's through wind, right? It's through the blowing of the breath. Also, what's interesting, he's also referencing another verse of the Quran. وَنَفَخْتُ فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِي. Allah says about Sayyidina Adam alayhi salam, I blew into his soul. So we blow into the reed flute. See how Mawlana Rumi, just that reed flute, there's how many analogies just from the Quran. We're not even looking at the Hadith, just the Quran. This is Hast Quran dar zubani pahlavi, the Quran in the language of Persia, right? One time in the Sahih, the books of Hadith, the Holy Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam, he was one time sitting next to Sayyidina Salman al-Farsi radiallahu anhu, and he's put his hands on him, and he says that there will be a person that emerges from the Persians that will be like the star of Suraya. It's the star of Pleiades. Now they say it's either Abu Hanifa, Imam Bukhari, or Mawlana Rumi. It can only be one of the three, but I mean, who knows? Radiallahu anhum ajma'in. Right? And so he says, but this fire that blows through us, it's not wind, it's fire, right? So he's sort of overturning the analogy. But if you don't have this fire, what is this fire? This fire of longing, this fire of yearning. When you yearn for something, right? That's why people, when they're flirting with other people, their temperature goes up, right? When they're interacting with the opposite gender, their temperature goes up, right? They can feel a heat on them. They're longing for someone. So Mawlana Rumi says that when you have this fire, right? This lights up your flute. If he doesn't have this fire, may he not exist. If you don't have this fire of longing for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the day and night you're not aching for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then may you not exist. It's as if you have no existence. This is why Allah in the Quran says that they are walking but they're dead. What is the verse? Does anybody know? Any hafad here? What's the ayah? That they're walking but they're dead. But this is Mawlana Rumi is referencing here, that it's as if you don't have that fire of love of Allah, you're already dead. Also Mawlana Rumi says, Bamirid qabla bamirid. Die before you die. If you kill your nafs here, then you will have life. If you die, but if your death catches you before you killed your nafs, then you're dead forever. Bamirid qabla az bamirid. right? Die before you die. آتش عشق است که اندر نی فتاد جوشش عشق است که اندر می فتاد. It is, love is fire. All of love is fire. Sorry, all of fire is love. All of love is fire, right? كأندر ني فتاد. And your flute, right, is being burnt in that, right? When you lament and you burn, when you have that longing, then you can become an actual flute. جوشش عشق است که اندر می فتاد. You can't produce alcohol or wine, right? Except you must ferment it, right? In that fermenting of love. همچونه زهری و تریاقی که دید همچونه دمساز و مشتاقی که دید. Who has seen a poison and an antidote like the reed, that it's both a poison and a cure. همچونه دمساز و مشتاقی که دید. Whoever saw a companion and someone who breathes, damsaz is someone who breathes with you, right? Whoever has saw someone like that with you, because that only the reed knows your pain. Only the reed knows the pain of separation, but it also knows the pain of yearning and lamenting. So let that be your companion in the way that it forms itself. Let yourself be formed like the reed. Ne hadith rahe purkhun mein kuna. Why is it an antidote and a cure? Or sorry, zahri or tiryaki. Why is it a cure and a poison at the same time? It's a double-edged sword. Nay hadith rahe purkhun mein kuna. Because the nay, the flute, it tells the story of blood. It's full of blood. When you're sacrificing your nafs, when you're sacrificing in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's full of blood. You're literally doing qurbani of your nafs. Of all of your base desires, of your carnal desires, you're doing qurbani of it. You're doing dhabiha of it. You're just saying Allah. But it becomes halal, right? It becomes dhabiha. It's not machine slaughter. But your hand slaughtering it, right? Dhabiha, there's some mystery in that. But in that blood is halal, you know? But here you're doing qurbani of your nafs, you're sacrificing your nafs, right? And it's creating that fire within you. And what is it doing? It's telling the stories of Majnoon. And Mawlana Rumi saw that in the life of Majnoon, nobody experienced love in the way that Majnoon did. Does everybody here know the story of Layla and Majnoon? But I mean, basically, it's a story of unrequited love, right? Where Majnoon wanted to marry Layla. His name was Qais ibn Mulawah. And he sought to marry Layla, but her father refused. And her father banned him from the city. So he would wander in the desert day and night, so much so that one day her father gave her permission, and she came out into the desert and she saw him dead in the desert. And all of the animals had died around him. And this is the story of love. There's another story, it's not the same story. We used to hear it in madrasa when some of our madrasa kids would be up to no good. And this happened, 800 years ago in Syria. So in the old Muslim city, especially in these old cities, you would have a Christian quarter and a Muslim quarter. So there was a Muslim guy who fell in love with a Christian girl. And both of the families obviously both did not allow for this marriage to take place. So they both became so incredibly sick that they were on their deathbed. Now the Muslim boy, he said that if I can't marry this girl in this life, I'll marry her in the next life, and he became Christian. But the girl said the same thing. She said that if I can't marry him in this life, at least I can be with him in the next life, and she became Muslim. This is what they call it ishq majazi, or fake love.
Yeah.
So this idea that if you have that longing and that love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right, it will fill you with that fire, but it will also be a bloody path. Hafiz al-Shirazi says, right, Ala ya ayyuha saqi adir ka'saha wa nawilha k'ish asan namud dhali uftad bi mushkilha. That, oh Saqi, oh cupbearer, come and pour another glass of wine. Because I thought love with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would be so easy, but I fell into so many difficulties. It's not an easy path, loving Allah, right? Coming on that path of utter love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But undoubtedly it is worth it, right? But it is full of blood, right? It is full of sacrifice. But if you can do that, you can achieve union. And you can achieve union with your roots, right? Mahrami ihosh juz behosh nist. Marzuban ra mushtari juz gosh nist. Only to the senseless is this sense confided. Once you lose all of your senses, then you can understand the sixth sense. You know, once you stop caring, right, about sort of the rhythms and the textures of this world, and you gain the sixth sense, then you can really become a mahram raz, right, a keeper of the secret. That what is the secret of loving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Marzuban ra mushtari juz gosh neest. That my tongue has no customer save the ear, right? That when I speak, only the ear is listening. در غم ما روزها بیگاه شد روزها با سوزها همراه شد. In our grief, right, in this grief of trying to seek Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all of our days have lost time. When you see someone who's very depressed, you see them, right? Time is just passing, day is passing, night is passing, evening is passing. They're not doing anything. They're, you know, just fixated on this. But he's saying that when I started to, you know, fall into this grief of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all time became one. Right? And this is what Iqbal says, that when you die and you escape this dunya, right? When you enter into the afterlife, you escape time and space. When you're with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're in just one moment. There's just one moment of union. Right? That all of our days became companions with flames. That every day is a new flame. Every day is a new sacrifice for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. روزها گرفت گورو باک نیست تو بمان ای آنکه چون تو پاک نیست. If our days are gone, so what? Let it go. It is no matter. Because only Allah will remain anyways. وَيَبْقَى وَجْهُ رَبِّكَ ذُو الْجَلَالِ وَالْإِكْرَامِ. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will remain. Right? So even if all of our days goes by, at least we have Him. هر که جز ماهی ز آبش سیر شد هر که بی روزش دیر شد در نیابد حال پختا هیچ خام پس سخن کوتاه باید والسلام. None that is raw understands the state of being ripe. The idea of that, if you are, you know, if you are raw, you know, if you're a raw fruit or if you're a raw sort of animal or a raw chicken, how can you understand what it means to be cooked? So Mawlana Rumi is taking this analogy of fire, of atish, and saying that burn yourself. Put suz haya in your life. Literally set your nafs on fire. Right? And then you will see what is on the other side. How can someone who is calm, who is unripe, understand that person who is ripe? That once you are burned by the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, once you experience that love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? There is no really way of expressing it. There's no way of putting it into words. And that's why he says, Pas sukhan kutah bayad was salam. So let us keep the speech short and just say wassalam. And that's obviously also a reference to the Quranic verse that وَإِذَا خَاطَبَهُمُ الْجَاهِلُونَ قَالُوا سَلَامًا. That when the people who don't know, if they don't know the secrets, just say salam to them.
Keep it short.
Just keep it short, right? وَإِذَا خَاطَبَهُمُ الْجَاهِلُونَ قَالُوا. Don't even say assalamu alaikum, Allah say. Just say salam. قَالُوا سَلَامًا. Right? So Mawlana Rumi says that if you don't understand all of these secrets, then just keep it short and just say salam to them. That if they don't understand the secrets of Mawlana Rumi and the Mathnawi, then just keep it short and say as-salam. I wanted to do another chapter, but it seems that everybody left. but the Khasan stayed, so let's do one more. What do you guys think? So the second chapter is called Hikayat Musa wa Shaban. I think it's actually my favorite story in the Mathnawi. It's so beautiful. Is that Qabul Bashad? What do you guys think? Qabul Bashad? I mean, obviously you guys know it, but I don't think they have heard the story.
We'll be here more.
I don't know it.
Okay. برون از گفتن است این چه میگویم نه احوال من است. Now my state is beyond telling. I can't explain my state. What I am saying is actually not my state. My state is much higher than what I am telling you. این چه میگویم نه احوال من است. نقش توست آن نقش آن آینه نیست. You saw the image which is in a mirror. You saw the image which is in a mirror. It is your own image. It is not the image of the mirror. There's many other analogies that he's saying. We'll just read the last two lines and then we can end there. But anyways, I mean, finally he says that you know, may you understand the secrets of the divine nature. You know, and blessings be on your hand and your arm. The breath which dam ke marde noi andar noi kard dar khor nois nadar khorad mard. that the breath which the flute player puts into the flute, does it belong to the flute? No, it belongs to the man. Right? So take hon o hon, gar hamd goi, gar sipas, hamchu na farajam on chu pon shanas. Take good heed whether you speak praise or give thanks. Know that it is even as unseemly of the shepherd. Right? We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless Mawlana Rumi, to give us a little bit of those secrets and those mysteries. Thank you guys all for staying. Man, this really was an hour and a half. I didn't feel